My name is Brensil Kaimba, and I'm your host for today. And allow me to just start by saying that it's a pleasure to always have you join us for these webinars. And I'm excited to host these webinars every Thursday at 3 p.m. East Africa time. And as of today, we've prepared a very interesting session for you. So we'll be discussing insider threats and just focus being on intelligent cyber defense, but mainly focusing on insider threats. So one of the speakers that we have today is Mr. Mamadou Kor. Mr. Mamadou Kor is a Chief Information Security Officer from Senegal, from a bank in Senegal. And he has quite a number of years of experience in information systems, particularly in the financial sector. So he has worked on quite a number of projects, key being participation in the development of money transfer solutions, including Money Express, rapid transfer, and all the way to Africash. He's also had roles that entail project management, and he has been responsible for handling projects that interfacing of different solutions. And he has quite a number of certifications, CISO, ISO 27001, ITIL. So welcome, Mamadou.
Thank you, Brensil. Hello, everybody.
Yes. Thank you. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good to say that I'm a French-speaking guy. So forgive me for my English. It will be a limping English.
Okay, it's okay. It's okay. Even for us, English is not our first language. We have so many dialects. So it's we welcome you to the platform. Our other presenter for today is Mr. Christopher Nanchengwa, and he's the Information Security Manager at Zambia Electronic Clearing House Limited. And if you've been doing a lot of research online, you'll know that Zambia is doing quite a lot in terms of its electronic financial system transformation and digitization of the whole platform. And he has been a key person in this transformation. So he has quite a number of experience in PCI, ISMS implementation and compliance and IT risk. He has worked with a lot of technologies, being SIM implementation, threat intelligence, and he has quite a number of certifications, including ISO 27001, CH, CISSP, quite a lot of certifications, I might say. Welcome, Mr. Chris.
Thank you for having me, and welcome to everyone attending.
Thank you. And of course, this webinar is brought to you by Africa Cyber Immersion Center. And for those of you who don't know, Africa Cyber Immersion Center is a research and training institute, or research and training and development institute here, based here in Nairobi. And our goal is just to train and empower different African nations to research African data, to share African data, and also empower different African employees, professionals to improve their cybersecurity skills. So today, as I had mentioned, we'll be looking at insider threats and why this is a key issue. Our focus is cyber intelligence, that is mainly dedicated to improving our response to insider threat. And the reason why we are looking at insider threats specifically is because this is one of the biggest cause of breaches out there. And when you look at the different reports that are out there, you'll find that over 50% of attacks are caused by, in one way or another, insider threats. So that's why we saw that this is a very important topic for us to analyze. And not just because it's a key issue, but because we need to identify what do we need to do. The intelligence, what intelligence do we need to get so that we can proactively defend against these attacks. So our first speaker for today will be Mr. Mamadou. And I hope you're ready. So you're welcome, Mr. Mamadou, to take us through that session.
Thank you, Brensil. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. As I said before, my English is limping, but I'll try. So it's a pleasure to share with you about cybersecurity. And as Brensil said, we are talking about insider threats. I think that, let me see if I have that. Yeah, so now the content of the presentation will be like this. I'll start with the definition. What is inside threats? give the types of cyber threats, frequency and impact of insider threats. Try to give some patterns and trends in insider threats across industry sectors. Talk about mobile devices and insider threats, and social networking and insider threats. Before, giving to Mr. Christopher for the second part. As a definition, I will say that an insider threat is a security risk that originates within the target organization. It can come from a current employer or an officer in the organization. It can come from a consultant, a former employee, a business partner, or a board member. So I think that as the type of insider threats, depending on the intention of the insider, we could classify them in two big types of insider threats. The first one is a pawn. A pawn is an unintentional participant in a security incident, meaning that he is not intentional. Probably it's an error or a mistake from him. So this guy is called a pawn. The other one is a turn clock. So he's an insider who is maliciously stealing data. And as a turn clock, we can classify them into three types. So of turn clocks, we have a fraudulent one. So for frauds, an intellectual property theft, a thief stealing data for something, and an IT system sabotage. So that can be for type of motivation, but it is for sabotage. That are the types we have identified. You can probably find other classification, but this is for me the most important one to have, depending on the intention of the insider. And probably if it is intentional, you can classify them into three. The insider is a good issue. It is a good issue because the insiders are employees or persons that knows the system of the company. They knows the system. They knows how it works. They have the motivation. It can be because they are angry or they want to, fight someone or things like that. And they have the privilege because they are employee of the bank. Some banks don't do, good monitoring of the privilege. So they have the conditions to do the malicious job if they want. The conditions are fixed. That's why it's a great issue. It is really there in the environment, and mostly the security guys are focused on the hackers outside and all this stuff. While the biggest issue is inside, and it is confirmed by the fact that the half of the data breaches are done by insiders, or they have participated on the incident. So half of the data breaches you have in the industry right now, from the statistics we have, we'll see that after, are coming from insiders. That means that it is a great issue and it has a big impact on the activity. It's not a technology problem. Right? Mainly, it's not a technology problem. It is mainly about ethic and moral of the employee. That's why it is important to have a background check of the people you hire. It is important to do that, even if it will not be enough. It is important from the management to monitor the behavior of the employees, because you can do a background check for the guys, but when the situation in the company changes, the guy can change the behavior. So it is important for the managers to be near the employees and then follow them, even if it's not an employee, to follow their behavior and then be aware of the intention of the guy. It will not be easy. And then probably technology will complete after by tools that can see the activity of the guy, the behavior in the system and those stuff. But the most important thing is that the first problem is not technological. It is about security governance mainly, and applying the principle of least privilege. So you can after use tools for that, but mainly it is a concept to have, and then a way of working to adopt in order to try to figure out the issue. Now we'll talk about the patterns and trends across the industry sectors. Distinct patterns for the type of security. Hold on, sorry, I have the issue with the. Okay, I'll do this. Thank you. Different patterns for a type of insider. We have mentioned earlier 3 types of insiders. It can be fraudulent when it's intentional. It can be intellectual property theft. It can be IT system sabotage. But common targets of insider frauds in the healthcare, for example, focus on customer data, while in the financial industry and insurance, where I'm from, is about money. People are trying to get money. When you go in other sectors, it will not be the same. So it depends on where the company, the activity of the company, the important information of the organization. That is the reason. Okay, about the key, findings we have about the patterns and then the trends we have, we have 58% of organizations that are feeling moderately to extremely vulnerable to insider attacks. So agree with me that it is huge. We have also 68% of organizations that confirm that insider attacks are becoming more frequent for them. So 58% is really critical and good for, a business. We also have 56% believing that detecting insider attack has become significant to someone harder since migrating to the cloud, because with the cloud, things are out of control, into brackets, out of control. You put many things outside of your infrastructure. It's a long debate, we probably see, but most of the guys know that the control of your data is in another location. We also have 52% that privileged IT user pose to biggest insider security risk to the organization, because they are the powerful guys, the privileged IT, they are the powerful guys, and mainly even the hackers target them. So if you are an insider that have privileged access, you have the access to the main important information of the organization. That are the trends across the industry. We now move to the mobile devices inside research. As the point said, the smartphones are everywhere. We use it. Most of us have at least 2 smartphones, and then we use it everywhere. And most of them don't follow the security policies we have in the company. And the damage is that we use it to at least access to our mailbox to see the email, because from home you are not always in front of your computer, and you have to know what is happening in the system, or at least have your email. So that is the simplest information we have there. And we know that the email, many sensitive information are sent through email. Many sensitive information are sent through email. If you open it with the smartphone, and we know the smartphones are not most of them are not from the company. It is actually difficult to put rules on a device that is not owned by the company. Some companies give devices to the employee and then try to, forbid them from using another one, but most of them don't respect that. Even most of the employees don't respect that. So it is a big problem, and that is a cause of insider stress. For social networking, and I mean, a phenomenon is happening that is called social cybercrime. We share many information in the social networks. We share many information about the social networks, and the traffic is really very good. So that is the perfect ground for phishing. And many phishing are happening. I mean, the hacking we are having, most of them, we all know, is happening because of social networking. And mainly, I can mention some techniques, social engineering. Today, to have information about me or any other, it is easy to get to it. It's Facebook or Twitter or any other, and then get many information. So then more people are doing control there. Malware are developed and then upload into links them to malicious guys. So even information that we pick from the company, inside the company, are shared on Facebook. Some people do that without knowing the consequence that it can have. That was the presentation. It was really short, and I'm sorry for the English if it limits for someone. And I thank you for your attention. I don't know if you have a question or Branchil, are you here?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mamadou, for that insightful presentation. I think you've highlighted quite a number of areas that I think I was even taking notes. And I think I'd just like to thank you for that insightful presentation. And one of the things I just got from what you mentioned, one is that the fact that insider threat is a key issue. And even from the statistics that you have shared, it's very hard to detect this. So I'd just like to also highlight that even as I welcome the next speaker. So as you've mentioned, again, insider threat is such a big issue. And the reason why it's a big issue is because it's very hard to detect. And the reason why it's hard to detect is, one, because it can happen. It can start, let's say, January, and you only get to know about it in June, because all these steps are being done in a very slow and synchronized manner. It's very hard to tap. This is the first part of the insider attack. But also, when you look at it again, why it's hard to detect, it's because when you have your employees, it's really hard to say, okay, Mamadou is doing the right thing, and he's working on since he has access to the data, the sensitive data, he's actually working on what he's supposed to. Because you have access to the critical data, it's really hard to distinguish when an insider goes wrong, for example. Yeah. So if you are the one responsible, let's say in a financial services sector, if you're the one responsible for reconciliation, or if you're responsible for customer data integrity, it would be really hard for the employer to know if you're working on the legit stuff or if you're mining data away from the organization. So I think that is also one of the reasons why it's really hard to detect. But also, again, it's easy for employees to cover their tracks. If there are any tech savvy people around, you can delete logs, you can disable auditing. So there are quite a number of things that you brought out that I thought I should also emphasize, because that is one of the problems that is facing a lot of people, especially here in Africa, if I'm to generalize it, because the same insider threats are mostly done by people who have access to critical data or who are interfacing with critical information in one point or another. So I think that was my only addition, and thank you for the insightful presentation, and I've really learned a lot. And at this point, we'll take the questions at the end of our session. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Mr. Chris. to take us through now. We know the risks. So what are the measures that we can take, the intelligent defenses, even tools that we can look at to protect ourselves from this risk, from the insider threat that we are talking about. So Chris will be taking us through that second part of this webinar. And his focus will be, what are the actual steps that you need to take as an organization? What are the indicators that you need to look out for? So welcome again, Mr. Nanchengwa. I think, Chris, you have to log in. Yes. Okay.
So thank you very much. Just a minute, let me allow the screen to load.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Can you see my screen, Benzo? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. I hope you can see my screen. So as earlier introduced, I'm Christopher Nanchengwa. I serve as the Information Security Manager for the Zambia Electronic Clearing House, and I will run you through some of the measures you can take and some of the applications that you can use to ensure that you manage your insider threat. As the earlier speaker has mentioned, insider threat is a very big risk. And the challenge with insider threats is that these are people we know. These are people we've allowed onto our networks. These insiders include current employees, former employees, business associates, and general contractors that we have allowed to operate on our network. It's a business requirement. It's something that we need. But on top of us needing it, there is a risk that these people can actually cause harm to our network. They've got the information that they need to cause harm to our network. They can lead to the exposure of confidential information. They can lead to valid information being altered, and they can lead to the unavailability of our systems. So we need to have a mechanism of being able to determine that people are operating within their limits and they're actually providing value to the organization. In our efforts to understand the problem and devise a way of remediating the problem, I choose to draw knowledge from Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu is an author of The Art of War, an old book about how to manage war. Sun Tzu said, if you know thyself and know thy enemy, you need not fear the outcome of 1,000 battles. So our response to insider threat is entirely based on how much we understand ourselves, how much we understand the insider, and how much we understand the problems that these insiders can face. On the screen, I've tried to present the problem in a mathematical form using a graph. I hope people will follow. So user behavior, of course, is a function of time. And as managers of our different systems, we need to have an understanding of what constitutes good behavior, good activity on our network. And we also need to be able to determine when our people deviate from the good behavior and implement the necessary measures. So the line I've drawn in green depicts the normal behavior, the good behavior, the normal activity on the network as people are supposed to operate when they focus on the objectives. And then what you have in red is the behavior of people that have gone over what is required of them. And the dotted lines there indicate the measure of deviation from the normal. And our role, from the information perspective, is to determine those deviations and ensure that we bring the red line into alignment with the green line and ensure that everyone is working towards meeting the organization objectives. Okay, so when you talk about deviations from the norm, sorry for that. What is that? So deviations from the norm, if you're looking at it from a system perspective, you're supposed to know exactly how your system works. You're supposed to know exactly how much CPU usage you use for a certain job, not exactly, or at least a baseline. You're supposed to know your hardware movement. You're supposed to know which files are accessed and so on. So from a system perspective, you're able to detect these deviations by looking at the processing overhead. How is your CPU performance over a period of time? Do you have exceptional data transfers? Because if somebody is stealing your data, then they will try to steal as much data as they can. But of course, people will try to hide their patterns by trying to stick to the normal. But we'll talk about the tools that can help you pick that up. Every system has got critical files. You've got operating system files, you've got files that reside in memory, you've got log files and everything. So you need to have a way of determining which the critical files are and who is accessing them. The use of unapproved peripheral devices. The previous speaker talked about bring your own device. And this is the big challenge that most institutions are working. People want to work with their devices they are used to. So as employees or as security staff, we need to be able to determine what is approved for working on the network and what is not approved. One other indicator that you pick up on the network, increased log failures. For example, somebody's trying to access a system and they don't have a password, and they try to initiate what is known as a brute force attack. Try every possible password that is there. We need to be able to determine when somebody is doing that. And of course, we also need to know exactly when somebody succeeds to log in. Most of the time, we choose to focus on the failures, but it's also the positives that indicate that there's actually something wrong that is happening on the network. Malware detection is also another indicator of threat. There's a term that is used often now called script kiddies. These are people who really don't have the expertise in information security management or ethical hacking, but they download tools. These tools are normally picked up as malware on different networks. So we need to have the capability to detect these malware detections. Away from the system, there are also behavioral traits that we need to look at when we're hunting for threats on our network. One of them is unusual working hours. Normal working hours in a usual environment is 8 to 5. So you find people are working overtime, over lunch, and over the hours. You need to get consent. What is it that they're doing that they can't manage to do within the normal working hours? You look at people attempting to bypass security procedures. Insiders, normally what they do is they start with something small and then they escalate to higher things. So you need to pick up the small changes. If you have a biometric system at your entrance and then somebody is always trying to tag in, that could be somebody trying to test whether he can be picked up or not. So people try to do small things, then they escalate to higher attacks. And as security managers, we need to be able to pick up those changes, not just from the system side, but we also need to pick up the way people are behaving. Disgruntled employees, someone is always complaining about their salary and all those. People are always looking out for jobs. Looking for a job is not a problem, but you need to understand the motivation of why people are looking for jobs. So these are traits of potential threats on your networks, and we need to have a hand on that. Thank you. So when we talk about the system, I did mention that each system has got critical files and systems that you need to monitor. One of those files that is generated is a log. So on any system that is running on your network, you have logs that are generated. If you're running firewalls, you're running routers, you're running Windows servers, there's always a log that is generated. So the management of your log plays a very big part in escalating your capacity to determine inside the threat. So in principle, the logs resides on the machine itself. There are designated areas where these logs are kept, and in most cases, these logs are protected. So when the issue of log analysis started, that people would have to move from one machine to another to look at the logs and understand what the system is doing, understand what is trying to attempt that system. Now things have changed and we've got centralized log management. So we do have utilities that are able to pull logs from all the different systems that you're running and store them in a centralized container. And this gives now the capacity for you to look at the enterprise from a holistic view, because you have all the information about what is happening on your network in one central point. It creates two capabilities that I wish to talk about today. There's the SIEM capability and the SOAR capability. The SIEM capability, SIEM is an acronym for Security Incident and Event Management. So you have this system, the centralized log management, that receives all your logs onto your system from the components on your system. The centralized log management looks at the logs, analyzes the logs, and then creates an event. An event is an alert. So it will send an alert to the respective people, either your systems administrators, your security personnel, so that they initiate a change, they initiate an activity. With a SOAR, SOAR is an acronym for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response. The SOAR goes further than creating an event, creating a trigger. The SOAR goes further by creating an activity now. So the SOAR will respond. It will learn what is happening on your network, determine whether what is happening is right, it's wrong, and then create an activity to respond to that trigger. So we need to have a facility where all our logs are collected in one central position. Then we have a central view of the organization. And then we can either create alerts to tell the respective people to say something wrong is happening, or an activity that will respond automatically to the threat. Of course, the activity can be a problem in that it could be responding to a false alarm. But through learning, by reviewing the various logs, the system becomes competent enough to make the right decision. In terms of our strategy to respond to risk, we need to fully understand our people. We need to fully understand what's drawing them and why they are acting the way they are acting. So there are basically three types of threat actors that you have on the network. They are malicious, negligent, and accidental actors. So this is like a continuum. The malicious ones are the ones that have the intention of doing harm to your network. These are people who just come onto your network with a specific purpose of causing harm to your network. They'll do their research, they'll look at your network, find out the weak points, and then cause the harm. And then you've got the accidental ones. These are people who just cause damage by accident. It's not intention. But in all these, we need to devise a plan to ensure that we're able to address our insider threats, whether they are malicious, they are negligent, or they are accidental. So in order for us to respond to the risks adequately, we have to understand the threat actors. By understanding the threat actors, you come up with a customized plan that is relevant to your environment. There are a lot of solutions out there where you implement everything, but not everything will work in your environment. The response has to be targeted in accordance to your risk. So, in order to respond to risk, in the earlier side I didn't indicate, we need to adopt a framework. A framework including processes, tools, and a strategy for us to respond to the risk. The starting point is a strategy. We know our risk actors. We know that our network is mostly made up of malicious actors, or it's made up of accidental actors. So we need a strategy of responding to that risk. One known strategy that people adopt is a zero trust strategy. In this strategy, you assume everyone on your network is a threat actor. Whether people have received what we call in Zambia as Labor Day awards. So every year we gather around the people who perform, we give them awards. Whether they've received those awards or not, we treat them as untrusted parties. And we assume they are here to cause harm and not good. So the strategy entails that every time a user comes onto your network, you validate them. You ensure that it's the users that you have allowed to get onto the network. Their credentials have not just been copied. These are people you've allowed to work onto their network. You validate their devices. These are devices you've given to them to use. These are BYOD devices. These are cloud devices that they can use, but you need to have a system of validating their devices. And you continuously monitor and manage their access. So at no point do you assume these are your friends. These are your enemies. Like the initial slide said, know thyself and know thy enemy. The only problem is that our enemy is now inside the house, and we need a strategy of responding to that enemy. So now from the security perspective, you know your people and you know what you've done to them. What skills do you need to respond to these people? Normally people jump onto security tools and want to run things that they don't fully understand. I still go back to my earlier statement. Know thyself, know thy enemy, and you will not fear anything that comes your way. 1,000 battles will be nothing for you. So in knowing thyself, you need to know your network. You need to know the infrastructure that you are running. You need to know the systems that you are running. So you need to know what network infrastructure you are running. You need to know the operating systems that they are running on. You need to know the type of logs that you're generating. You need to know the security features of those network infrastructure. You need to know your applications. You need to know whether you're on a Linux system, you're on a micro system. A security guy is supposed to know the operating systems and the network inside out, because you're operating on top of the normal application environment, the normal network environment. So you're supposed to have a history of networks. You're supposed to have a history of operating systems. You're supposed to know your Windows. You're supposed to know your Linux environment. On top of that, you need to understand threat intelligence. You need to value the information that is traversing on your network and the information outside that will help you understand the network. You need forensic management kits, or forensic management tools and knowledge. You need to understand ethical hacking. You need to understand the hacking process, how it works and how it damages the network. I've proposed a number of certifications that provide this knowledge. There's Linux training there, there's Microsoft, there's ethical hacking, and so on. So there's no such thing as too much knowledge. You need all the knowledge that you can get about this. You need to have the knowledge of normal operating environments, and you need to have the knowledge of what counts as an abnormal operating environment, if I can call it that. So when you get these skills, you'll be able to pick up inside the threats and so on. So in terms of tools, there exists a number of tools that you can use on top of the knowledge, of course. Some tools are out of the box. You deploy them on the network. You're able to run different commands and everything, and it will run and pick up the threats for you. But I believe in you people understanding your environment. Don't believe in an out-of-the-box packages. They're there, they work, but coupled with the knowledge, you will get value from your network. So quite a number of tools are there. They range from open source to custom, commercial. If you have the capacity, you can build one in-house, but it's a lot of work and very expensive. So quite a number of tools are available. You've got Linux Kali. Linux Kali is freely available for download, and quite a number of training programs are available that will teach you how to work with Linux Kali. Linux Kali is a composition of a number of tools. Quite a number of security tools that you have on the market right now come from Linux Kali. People get them, customize them, commercialize them. So it's a good starting point. You can start by learning Linux Kali and know how to work with it. One other tool that is available free is OSSEC, Open Source Security. Open Source Security is very good. It works as an agent and as a server. You can deploy it on all your network infrastructure or your server infrastructure. It will pull the logs for you, forward them to a server that has SIEM or SOC capabilities, and it will give you insights of what is happening on your network, and you will be able to respond. Other tools include Greylog, SolarWind, AlienVote, and others. I'm a big fan of AlienVote. AlienVote is a very good tool, quite affordable. It's owned by AT&T Security, and it provides very good insights of what is happening on your network. But all in this, you need to be driven by the risk. You need to understand the risk. You need to understand the inside the threat. The understanding of the inside the threat will drive you to the right tool that you need to run on your network for you to respond to the problem. Some tools are very expensive, others are very affordable. The pricing needs to talk to the risk. So if you're going to invest money in a tool, you need to understand the risk and choose the appropriate tool. So quite a number of tools are available, and most of these are coupled with training programs that will help you derive value and understand what is happening on your network. The insider threat is very real. Most of the time we are told hackers are sophisticated, but in most cases, hackers take a lot of time to get into your network. A very well configured firewall will keep most hackers away in most cases, but it's a threat that is inside. It's the people that you have allowed to come beyond your firewall that you need to be afraid of. And this tool will help you manage that. Of course, these are not the only tools. There are quite a number of other tools that you can use, but this is a starting point. Thank you. I hope I've provided value to people. People have an extra understanding of how to manage insider threats. Thank you very much.